So welcome everyone again to our third Quakerism 101 session on Quaker ministry. Uh, and before I start in, I want to invite everyone to interrupt me at any point when if something comes up that you'd like to know more about or follow through on. I want to follow wherever the Spirit leads us as we go along. You can use the raise hand tool or just wave your hand in front of the camera or just speak up if you like. I do have an outline, but I'd rather make sure that we answer everybody's questions and go where people want to go with it. Also, I'm about to anyway, paste a link in the chat window that goes to a PDF file of a short history of an introduction to the history of Quaker ministry, which you can download from our website. And because the history, if I were to really cover the history in a detailed way, it would just take up too much time. But if you're interested, this is a brief survey, so to speak, of some of the material that I'll be going over today. There will be a little bit of lecture, but we'll have a couple of opportunities to meet with each other in small groups too. So I want to start with the question, what is Quaker ministry? Minister, the English word, comes from the Latin word minister, which means servant. And I think this is a useful way to think of ministry as service. So I want to start with my operational definition of Quaker ministry just to get us oriented. Ministry is whatever service we feel led to undertake by the Spirit of Christ, by the Holy Spirit, by our inner guide, however we've come to understand the source of our calling to service. For a look at what ministry meant to early friends, it's really hard to beat Robert Barclay's definition of ministry at the very beginning of his chapter on ministry in his Apology. And it's not too long, and it's so good that I thought I would start by reading it. It is by the light or gift of God that all true knowledge of things spiritual is received and revealed. It is also by the strength and power of these, as they are made manifest and received in the heart, that every true minister of the gospel is ordained, prepared, and equipped for the work of the ministry. Every evangelist and every Christian pastor ought to be led and directed in his labor and in the work of the gospel by the leadings, motions, and drawings of God's light. These should govern not only the place where, but the persons to whom he speaks, and the time when he should speak. Those who have this authority ought to preach the gospel even though they are without human commission or are illiterate. If they lack the authority of the divine gift, no matter how learned they may be, or what authorization they may have from men, or how well they may be commissioned by churches, they should be considered deceivers and not true ministers of the gospel. This who have received this holy and unspotted gift have received it without cost and should give it without charge. They should certainly not use it as a trade to earn money. But if God has called any of them from their regular employment, or the trade by which they earn their living, They should receive such worldly necessities as food and clothing. It is lawful for them to accept these as far as they feel allowed by the Lord, and as far as they are freely and cordially given by those with whom they have shared their spiritual matters. I want to read one more quote that's from Marty Grundy's pamphlet, Early Friends in Ministry, that describes the purpose of these early friends ministry, quoting from a friend from the period, a woman named Elizabeth Bathurst. The purpose of friends ministry is, quote, that the ignorant may be instructed, that gainsayers may be convinced, that the weak may be confirmed, and that the strong may be consolated. Therefore do our ministers labor in the word and doctrine, to convert sinners to Christ Jesus, the gift of God, and to build up saints in their most holy faith, and to edify one another in love. I want to touch on some of the highlights of Quaker ministry's evolution over time as we go along. But like I said, I don't really have time for a detailed history. So just another reminder that there's a link in the chat room for that little piece that I wrote up. But first, I want to explore how we ourselves understand Quaker ministry. I want to get us thinking for ourselves about what ministry means and how it works as a context for approaching our broader ministry tradition. So I want to break out into some small groups and look at some queries that are designed to help us recognize our own calls to ministry. We'll take about 10 minutes to share with each other, and then we'll return and share a little bit out of that and then move on. And we're going to have some small groups later on in the session as well to delve further into our own experience. So let me set up this little breakout session a bit. Quakers often say that we are all ministers, that we did not lay down the clergy when we rejected paid ordained ministry. Rather, we laid down the laity. But actually, we are not ministers until we are serving. It's true that any one of us may be called to ministry at any time, and we know that this principle is a possible gift for anyone. And this idea or approach to ministry was, in its time, and even still today, a revolutionary breakthrough in the understanding of the religious life. But back to ministry, we only become ministers, I'm saying here, when we answer the call to serve. On the other hand, we do assume that Spirit does in fact call everyone to its service. But we may not recognize that this is what's happening. We may not think of some of the kinds of service that we do in the world as Spirit-led ministry. I think that most of us are doing things in the world that we would call ministry if we looked at it through that lens. It may not rise to such a level of intensity or scope or a sense of spiritual calling that we feel we should take it to the meeting for formal adoption and care, the way that Vanessa and Laurent and Yoko and our other ministers have done. But it might be Spirit-led service nonetheless. We may not think of this work as ministry because it arises organically out of our life journey, out of our interests and passions and concerns, or even just out of a necessity. Many of us have jobs that are actually ministries, but since we have come to them from the natural process of needing to declare a major or to get a job done, we don't necessarily think of them that way. Many of us are volunteering somewhere or helping someone out in some way without thinking of it as Spirit-led service. It's only after looking backward at how we got where we are that we might see God's hand at work. So, what I'm getting at here is trying to integrate more of our lives into the life of the Spirit as Quakerism defines it. So, how would we recognize a ministry as service in the Spirit? To answer this question, let's define ministry in a different way. What fulfills us? What gives us the deepest satisfaction when we are doing it? Even if it sometimes vexes us, this sense of fulfillment can be a mark of God's work in our lives, since the Spirit's wish or goal for us is our joy and our wholeness. And let's ask the question one more way. Who benefits from the things that we do in the world? Whom are we serving? And how does it feel to serve in these ways? You can keep these ideas in mind as we look at some queries, which I'll put up on a shared screen. We'll have about, well, let's see, how many are we? We're up to 21. I think I'll break up into groups of 3. We'll take about 15 minutes then, I think. So here are the queries. I'm going to share them on the screen. Well, let me do that. Let me do that now before I get distracted here. Can you see them? Are they up?
Yes.
So the queries are, what things am I doing in the world that benefit others, that give me special satisfaction, and in which I can perhaps see divine guidance at work? And how does looking at this service in this way change how I think about it and feel about it, and how I might approach this service in the future? So let me see if I can master the technology of sharing screen here. I am having a little bit of difficulty. I mean, creating the rooms. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm up to here with these queries?
Do we stay on these 2 queries the whole time, or are these just the first few that we should cover in the 15 minutes?
These are the only ones for that period of time. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it works. And I think you may have to accept to join the room somehow. Is it working for you? Can you hear me?
You asked for us to come back.
Yeah, I fumbled it. I created 3 rooms instead of creating rooms for 3 people.
Right. We noticed that there were 6 of us.
And Steve, can the queries be shared in the chat for all of us to look at, reference later?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Steve, I couldn't get in any of the rooms.
Okay, well, I'm going to try this again.
Whoops. Steve, I think you know there were 6 in our group.
Yeah, I know, I fumbled it. I created 3 rooms instead of rooms for 3 people.
We're getting used to the technology.
Good.
I'm not getting used to that part of it. I couldn't do what you're doing, Steve.
No, I'm very impressed.
Me neither.
Steve, how will I know which room I'm in?
It automatically assigns you.
But Tony, you have to click, it says willing to join breakout group, and you say yes, join breakout group. You have to push that. It should show up on your
Push
screen.
Join. Yeah, you have
All
to
right.
push the join button.
Steve, I was just in a group and was speaking, and I got a message returning to the main session.
All
So
of
now
us,
I'm no longer in a group.
all of
Yeah.
us,
I fumbled the creation of the rooms. I thought I was creating rooms for 3 people, and I only created 3 rooms.
Oh,
So I'm doing it over again. Does anybody else have questions before I do this?
No.
yes. Patricia, what's your doggy's name?
Jasper, he goes to lots of Zoom meetings. He'll be good.
What a good boy. Hi, Jasper.
Welcome, Jasper. Here come those rooms again. Good luck.
Only 2. That would be fun.
Here comes Steve. Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
She knows the queries.
There's snow, Steve. There's no snow where you are.
There's some snow on the driveways and stuff.
But
No,
you
but
have
we're
no
looking at your background.
Oh, green, green, green.
Oh, you know what that is? That's Pendle Hill in England.
Oh.
I'm going to move my head so you get a good look at it.
Oh. I've signed up for the Quaker pilgrimage to go there.
Oh, I want to so badly.
What year is that going to be?
We keep deferring to the following year.
Yeah.
I hope I live long enough.
Well, let me see if I can find the chat room.
Well, George, I think you've got ministry, locked up. I think about with just about every breath, maybe you've got a ministry going.
Yeah, looking at the collection of people that we've gathered today, I guess I do have more years of certified ministry by our meeting than anyone else in our group. It's been quite a long run, hasn't it?
And a very rich run.
A
As
very
well.
rich run.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading about you in Friends Journal, and from years past. So, and always appreciated.
Wow, the support has been tremendous. Tremendous support from Quakers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Been
that's
a
good to
really
hear.
well-supported ministry.
And the stuff that you did before, I mean, what I was most recently involved with was what you did before the election, and how to possibly respond to a coup attempt kind of thing. And I just found that so helpful.
Oh, good. In what way did you find it helpful?
Friends, I have to interrupt you for a minute. Tony Manasseh is still having difficulty getting in, so I'm going to leave the chat and see if I can give him some help.
Okay.
If I can figure
Okay.
out how to leave the chat.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
leave
what
the
was helpful
breakout
for you?
room.
just the idea of the being the peace and the centered and the thing that my sister actually, my sister always mentions, my sister Karen, who lives up in Hartford, and I, from way past, she used to come to Central Philadelphia meeting when she lived here 40 years ago. But what she was most interested in, that she kept asking me about, that I couldn't totally respond to, was the idea of the pillars, that having every different segment of society supporting the efforts to combat the coup. And there was the recent article in Time magazine, which was talking about that, which was talking about the CEOs coming in and combining with other forces to refuse to allow a coup to happen. That by having business and liberals, progressives, and